This is a review of Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury on the Switch, which I'll be honest, I did not expect to see this game come to the Switch, even though I have always been very pro porting all the Wii U games to the Switch. Given I don't have a Wii U and I have a Switch. Very philosophical, I know. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm reviewing the Switch version on its own since I don't have a point of comparison to the original version. So if there are major differences between this and the original release, I won't be able to point them out. So let's start with 3D World and its story, because it's a Mario game and you can already expect someone gets kidnapped by Bowser and you'll have to platform through the worlds to save them. The person to save used to be Princess Peach, but since she's one of the playable characters in this game, it just wouldn't make much sense, would it? Instead here, your goal is to save the Sprixie princesses. I hope I'm saying that right. A new set of characters, these being these very overtly cute fairies, and while each one of them does have some form of recognizable personality trait, these are very much mute Mario characters, so don't expect any character development. So the story of Mario very much only exists to justify its gameplay and setting, and that's fine. Not every game has to be a serious blob, and I don't think anyone is going into a Mario game expecting a political drama. So let's talk about what people care about this type of game, and that's the gameplay. 3D World is in a lot of ways a mishmash of other Mario games, with a fixed camera much like the Galaxy games and the world design much like the 3D Land game, which by itself is also a lot more akin to the 2D Super Mario Bros. Games, but with that 3D perspective, hence the name 3D World, because it's a world of Mario, but it's in 3D. I know, I'm getting too philosophical again, but the actual gameplay is really solid. Characters have weight to them, and their movement is honestly the hardest part to get used to. In this particular game, I found the first hour of this game to be a big learning curve, and I don't know how much of that has to do with the other platformer I played before this, Little Nightmares 2, or just the fact I haven't played any Mario games in a long while. But regardless, it's really not the end of the world, and thankfully I did get used to it, and you shouldn't have any problems doing it either. Aside from that, it's very much your standard 3D Mario moveset. It's not quite Odyssey level, but from reading online, it actually gets some moves from Odyssey, like the dive that can be done without the catsuit, and of course your moveset also being very dependent on what suit you have. And there's a big variety of playstyles to choose from, the catsuit of course being the main one to be introduced here, but a lot of others like the Tanuki suit that allows you to do a tail attack and hover, and its variant that makes Mario invincible, this one only showing up if you die a lot in any given level. Kinda like the chicken head in Metal Gear Solid 5. Now moving on, we also have a propeller box that allows you to jump so high and glide for so long, which I would say is almost like an overpowered Tanuki suit, if that wasn't already a thing with the invisible version of the suit. But to be fair, these are rare power-ups and fall more into the category of powers that have more specific uses than just generally making platformer easier. For example, the double cherry, which multiplies your character, and it's mostly used to activate some optional platforms. Or the Goomba suit, which allows you to walk around Goombas undetected, which again, very specific use. And of course, the classics are also here. Fire Flower, Boomerang Flower, Superstar, and the Super Mushroom, which at this point in time really don't need explanation. You can carry one, technically two power-ups at a time, one being in use and the other one sitting in your inventory slot that you can use at any time. That not working though with powers that stack with other power-ups like the Superstar and the Double Cherry. By stacking I mean they will activate with the power you already have instead of replacing it. Now, along with the character's power-up, we have to talk about the playable characters here. We have primarily 4 characters: Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, and specifically the Blue Toad. Their main differences being Luigi jumps higher, Princess Peach glides, and Toad can run fast. And of course Mario is your base character the white bread of playable platformer characters. That's what he is. Anyways, moving on to the actual level design of 3D World, and it's very varied. While we have the usual worlds and their usual themes like desert or ice world, but here these don't always dictate what the levels will actually look like, allowing there to be a lot more variety, like there might be a haunted house or the void of space. These levels being spread around really help the pacing and enjoyment of the game. And of course, it helps that, like most Mario games, these are designed really well in the way everything is laid out. This is definitely something that can be hard to describe to someone who hasn't played any 3D Mario game, but levels are just made in such a way that they allow for exploration without breaking the flow that comes with these more linear platforming games, which is of course helped furthermore by the solid controls of Mario and his friends. Another thing helping the pacing is also the different types of levels breaking up the pace, like the Toad Adventure levels that you might know as the same minigame that eventually became its own spin-off game, Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, and also the Plessy levels where you ride this giant reptile called Plessy. Again, I hope I'm saying that right. And of course, these are very much on-rail segments where you'll be going down a body of water, avoiding obstacles and collecting coins. The challenging mostly coming from the bottomless pits and how heavy Plessy is to steer. Now, moving on to the graphics and the music, this is a very polished looking game with very bright colors and cheerful sound. It's very light-hearted and fun looking, and that's how it feels to play. Everything is very round and friendly, even the enemies are never particularly threatening, and the music once again emphasizes that. It's very telling that even in the darkest parts of this game, like during the mansion or castle levels, it's still for the most part well lit and goofy rather than scary, and that's a good thing. This is a light-hearted game, like I said, made for everyone to be able to play, and I think it really accomplishes that. Even being a 7-year-old game and not looking that different, it has aged really well, and for that reason and all the reasons I've given so far, I am giving 3D World an 8 out of 10, and this is where usually I would give my recommendations. But given we still need to talk about the new addition to this game, that is Bowser's Fury. And since we ended with graphics and sound, then we'll start with it now. And it's important to talk about because it is different. Released on the Switch and with 7 years time difference between them, it was bound to look different. And it does. Lighting is a lot more complex. There's a lot more particle and weather effects, which do play into the gameplay, which is nice. And overall, it's just a much bigger world than any of the individual 3D World levels. It is in fact an open world game of sorts, which makes this improved graphics even more impressive. But what is even more impressive is how everything is cats or cat-like. All the enemies, even the random items, will be cat-shaped in some way, and it's very cute. Anyways, now, speaking more about this open world, the way it works is it's kinda like a bunch of Mario 3D levels put in an ocean, which you can travel around using Plessy, who is a bit easier to steer here, which makes sense given now you aren't stuck on a linear track, even though Plessy still gets used for certain challenges that are similar to those of 3D World, the difference being that they're using the open world as its stage. These levels and challenges don't show up all at once though, leading me to talk about the core of the game, that is Bowser's Fury. The world is covered with this black goo, and it's from that goo that giant Bowser emerges, and as you defeat him, more of the world will be revealed by clearing some areas of this mysterious goo. And to defeat giant Mad Bowser, you need to collect stars along these levels that are spread across the map. Doing this will unlock these giant super bells that allow you to transform into giant Mario in a cat suit. That also happens to look a lot like a Super Saiyan from DBZ. Is in this form that you can actually fight with Bowser, which is kind of funny and cute. and I like it anyways. Each one of these levels have a set number of stars, kinda like Mario Odyssey, where these can be acquired by finding them within the level or doing challenges, or simply completing these individual stages, with them all ending in a lighthouse, this being meaningful to the themes of the game of bringing back the light to this world, and also mechanically, as Bowser will randomly show up and attack you, and creating a storm. So when you can collect one of the stars during these harsher conditions, you activate the lighthouse, damaging Bowser and sending him away temporarily. So there is this incentive to actually try and find stars during this more challenging time over just waiting for it to blow over, which you can also do. The gameplay here plays much like 3D World, the Switch version, but with Bowser Jr. following you along. He can be controlled by a player or by the AI, but a warning, if you pick AI, then you should choose a less aggressive setting for him, as I found that he will kill everything if you pick the higher settings, which makes the game a bit too easy. Level design though, it's on par with 3D World, being that it's really good, but it's also really clever in the way that levels lead to each other. Since the end of each level is a lighthouse, that means that you end up in a high area that gives you view to the other levels, which I think is a really good detail. And now, to finish this off, I want to talk about the actual fighting against Bowser and the game's length, which happens to be my two biggest deterrents to this game. First, the boss fights against Bowser are really nothing special. I would say that most fights in 3D World are better gameplay wise, while this one really only stands out because of its spectacle. But it's also an impressive spectacle, as both you and Bowser are giants fighting in the map that you were traveling around, towering over levels that you were just now platforming. And that's cool. But that's also about it. The actual fight is just fine. Dodge a few attacks, then counter and jump on him. It is very basic Mario affair. Then the length of the game, this is at the end of the day a really big Odyssey level, and for that it really only lasts about 3 to 4 hours if you're not trying to 100%. And a lot of those 4 hours are already spent playing within the same levels because of the stars necessary to progress the story. That being said, this isn't really a big problem as it would be if this was a game sold on its own, and of course depending on how much that product would cost, but it isn't. It's an add-on on an already content-full game, and it's hard to judge its value. But I decided that because of the situation it's in, that I wouldn't hold it against it. And I'm giving Bowser's Fury an 8 out of 10. And the whole product is getting an 8 out of 10 as well. It was close to a 9, and it would have been had the Bowser's boss fights been better, because honestly 2 8 out of 10 games are better than one. So scoring the two games together for me isn't really an average score type of thing. Just putting that out there. If I ever review another set of two games or a set of games in general, it's more of how the whole product is and how it fits together. Anyways, recommendation wise, if you haven't played 3D World like me, then yeah, this is a recommendation. It is a full game plus Bowser's Fury, and I think that's pretty good. But if you have played 3D World, then this is a lot harder to justify at full price, since you would be getting almost the same game plus Bowser's Fury, which, while is a nice game, it's hard to justify, again, that full price. So it's up to you to decide if you want that, if you want to experience 3D World again. Honestly, I would prefer that they let you buy it separately rather than locking it to this game, which is a bit annoying. But I'll say that in my recommendation that you probably shouldn't. You probably should wait for a discount which with Nintendo games can be a bit of an annoyance too, but regardless. Or maybe wait for them to sell Bowser's Fury separately, which I would not hold my breath on. Regardless, that's just my recommendation, and at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide. And regardless of that, I hope that this review helped you in that decision somehow. And regardless of that, please consider subscribing and liking and commenting, all things you can do for free here on YouTube. And regardless of that, have a nice day and goodbye. I'm getting a bit carried away using regardless at the end of my reviews.